Hello, my name is Lisa Nelson. I'm the owner and chief consultant at Elegant Event Planning and Design, a comprehensive wedding planning firm. I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about my story, how I came into wedding planning. It all pretty much started while I was in graduate school. Up until then, I've always, been on the math science track. I graduated from Smith with a major in biology and minor in chemistry. So it was natural that I went on to graduate school because I didn't know what else to do. At Smith, I sort of knew that science wasn't my thing, but I was very good at the bookwork. I could easily process hard to comprehend information, and I loved, the bookwork. The lab work, on the other hand, I don't think suited me, but I didn't know what else to do, so I went on to graduate school. My first year in graduate school, I was miserable. Miserable is not even the word. I was very depressed. I started having panic attacks where I would lay down to go to sleep and my body would uncontrollably shake. I was, the coursework was a disaster. I would study and study and study. In fact, I remember for my immunology class, we had a test, and I studied for a weekend straight, a weekend and a couple days, and I missed an important meeting I was supposed to attend. I studied straight. I was going to do well on this exam, and I got a 9. That's 9 out of 100, not 9 out of 10, and I was completely devastated. In fact, I went to psychological services, asked if I could see someone. When they said everybody was busy, I bursted out crying in the middle of the lobby, and they said, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you going to hurt yourself?" And I was like, I remember saying, "Are you crazy? You think I'm going to kill myself over graduate school? It's not worth that." Anyway, that was sort of a turning point. I left graduate school for a year. I continued doing science, which I shouldn't have. And I didn't want to go back to graduate school at all. Not specifically Brown, but I didn't want to go back anywhere. I was very disenchanted with science. I didn't like doing it. It just wasn't fun, but I didn't know what else to do. And, I expressed my, feelings that I didn't want to go back. I got a lot of emotional pressures from friends, people that were, who loved me, who said, an African American woman with a PhD in cell biology, you can't just walk away from that. So I didn't want to disappoint anyone, and I certainly didn't want to let my race down. So with emotional pressures and a whole race on my back, I went back to graduate school when I knew my gut feeling that I shouldn't have. The panic attacks came back, the depression came back. I needed an emotional outlet, and wedding planning sort of just fell onto my plate. It wasn't planned. I never said I want to be a wedding planner. In fact, the only thing I knew about planning weddings was Jennifer Lopez and the wedding planner. So there was a wedding planner based out of Maine that needed some help, and I needed something else to do besides be depressed in science when my projects weren't working. So I decided to help her. I drove all around New England for 10 months for no pay, and I helped her with weddings. And you know what? I absolutely loved it. In fact, I remember we were in the North Shore of Boston at a site, Castle Hill, and the bride's mother had given her a $50 tip, and she shared her tip with me. So she gave me $25, and I was so happy. That was the only money that I took for all those months and all that driving. And it really didn't matter because it was like my savior. So when we found out we were moving down to Maryland, I went on my own and planned weddings in New England for free, just to gain more experience, build a portfolio. I continued my studies. I moved to a lab. When we moved to Maryland, I moved to a lab down here. My project continued to fail. I felt like a complete failure. I felt like I was letting myself down and everybody else. I wasn't enjoying it. But I continued my wedding planning, and that was what really made me happy. I started in Baltimore. I thought I could get a better foothold in Baltimore than if I came to DC with all these established planners here. And I took my first wedding for $750 for a full planned wedding. And it was a difficult wedding. But I just persevered and I continued. And it sort of grew from there. From Baltimore, it went to Frederick, Southern Maryland. I got lots of opportunities, lots of wonderful opportunities, and worked with some really wonderful brides. And sort of the science went into the background. I felt like it was something that I had to do, just because I started it, whereas the wedding planning felt like something that I was meant to do, something that finally clicked after 8.5 long years of depression, despair, loathing, and you know, I begged people for acceptance, and I don't know why I felt like I needed an acceptance from anybody else. But it's something that I needed. I remember saying, why can't you support me in what I want to do? And the person said, because I can't. And finally I realized, well, I can't do this for anybody else. I can't do science for anybody else to make anybody else happy, because ultimately I'm the one who's going to have to live my life. So I decided to get my master's degree and leave that track and do my wedding planning full time, and I have not been sorry that I decided to do that. It's the best decision that I ever made, and I wish that I would have had the courage to make it sooner. You know, there's no reason why I should have had to suffer all that time when, you know, it was right here for me to take.